that's what we're going to talk about today: health, fitness, and mental well-being. And this is becoming a huge discussion, particularly in the organizations that we're working with, where, you know, with all of the challenges that are around the world, there's a lot of people that not only are finding it tough to get all of that, maintain a level of balance, but their dynamics have changed significantly, especially when they're working from home, and there's less natural boundaries that were there in terms of going to work, coming home from work, leaving work behind, leaving the pressures of that behind, having to somehow rejig your timetables to fit in your fitness in a way that sort of works with a timetable that doesn't seem to have a start and a finish to it. There's been a lot of change, and companies are really noticing the strain and the burnout that's occurring in their organizations. I saw some stats yesterday that showed individual contributors are actually doing better than leaders. The closer you get to the top, the worse it seems to be. You know, people are really struggling, and increasingly, companies are feeling more responsibility to look after the whole person, not just the work person. It almost used to be, well, did it happen at work? If it's not work related, it's not our issue. And now many companies, many employers feel a real responsibility to take into account the mental well-being of not just their employees, but even of those employees' families, especially when the statistics show that 1 in 4 people are directly connected to some form of mental illness. 1 in 4. They're huge statistics. So that means either that person as an employee or someone in their immediate family is suffering some form of mental illness. And obviously all of that lands on the spectrum. So this is a huge topic now for employers and leaders. And I think it's really worth visiting given all of the challenges and changes that have been occurring in the world. We're going to look at it through the lens of ID, because long before these recent challenges, there's been a lot of material and a lot of experts out there telling us what we should do. There's all sorts of things that we all know that there's things we need to pay attention to. I've got some of them here on the slide for you in terms of what I would just call the shoulds. You know, we all know that we're meant to exercise. We all know that we're meant to have nutrition and some form of balanced diet. Everyone says, you know, everything's fine as long as you do it in moderation. We all know that you can't just burn the midnight oil. There's meant to be some level of balance, and you've got to pay attention to your sleep and rest and recovery and having time out away from the grind of whatever work you're doing. And no matter how fulfilling it is, you're meant to have variety. Variety is the spice of life. So they say we all know these things, and yet we struggle to either do them or find a way to do them our way. And then I would say there's also, as in more recent time, this concept of mindfulness. And I would just say there's almost, the way people think of these is almost like there's a basic level of things that we need to do. So that's like the exercise, nutrition, and the rest and variety side. And then if you want to be more advanced, there's these concepts now of mindfulness, where you can sort of take your life to a new level. If you want to be the best version of yourself and not just live a healthy life, but optimize your life, there's another level of attention that you need to give. And there's some of the things that I would put in the mindfulness category. We all, those of us who are regulars here and into ID, all know the significance and the need to also be in stride and true to yourself. So we all know these things. Some of us pay attention to them more than others. But at the end of the day, you know, we're all human and we all can struggle. What I would say to you is the people that do this best, and they do focus on, you know, they get themselves sorted for the things that are fundamental. And with these areas that are considered more advanced, they're not things that they just naturally do, or you know, they're lucky that they're just wired to enjoy exercise or enjoy a positive mindset. The people that I talk to that do life best have made it a personal commitment, and they dig into it. You know, they've learned about it. It's whatever they're doing, it's not based on luck, it's or circumstance. It's something very intentional that is conscious in their mind 24/7. And I think that before we go any further and start looking at strategies, if you really want to do your best life, live your best life, it's really about saying, how serious do you want to take this? Do you want to bring your best self? Is it something you're willing to be thinking about really quite regularly, at least daily, if not throughout the day? And as various things happen that might challenge you, instead of giving up on it, you just dig deeper to reshape that perspective, reshape that strategy, and find a way to also do that challenge from a place of, positivity and being in stride. Now, we all know, those of us who are into ID, and I know there's a bunch of people new to this call today, this webinar, when it comes to the connection between mind and body, I have a lot of research around this, so I'm just going to put it out there. And I would ask, if you're new to it, you're welcome to debate me on it. But this is after 30 years of doing this consistently, person after person. And I didn't know this when I started the development of the ID. But what I found was that when people were being in stride with their ID, so that's what this green arrow represents, when they're operating true to themselves, that's when their health and their, vitality in life was also at a really high point. If people were operating out of stride, so that's represented here by the arrows that pull you to the left or to the right, and you start to exhibit forms of stress that are down here on the horizontal axis, I found that there was a deterioration in people's physical well-being, not just their mental well-being. And I was like, wow, we read about a connection between mind and body, but I still to this day getting people saying things like, well, I'm really stressed, but it's not affecting my attitude. I'm still a positive person, or it's not affecting my performance. I'm still giving my best. And unfortunately, it's not until you get to the other side of that stress or that situation, and you look back and you go, wow, it was really weighing heavy on me, but I couldn't see it or I couldn't feel it at the time, because you're still giving your all, but it's like a car that's grinding away in first gear, not knowing that there's a second, third, or fourth gear that's possible. So it's doing all it can, but it's not optimizing the output. And you're also not experiencing the best output in terms of your personality, more the point, nor are other people around you. And so there is absolutely not only a connection between mind and body, but I want to tell you there's a perfect connection between mind and body. There's such a strong partnership that if you've got the willpower to force yourself to do things that are not right for you, your body, as the other 50% partner in your whole system, will eventually call it out. It will eventually say, stop this, or if you don't stop it, I'm going to stop it for us. I'm going to give you a heart attack. I'm going to give you a skin irritation or some other form of illness. I'm going to do something to you with a migraine, whatever it might be, to make you stop, pay more attention, and change direction. That's how perfect the relationship is. The body won't let you down. So when people think that they're having a breakdown or a letdown, it's not really something going wrong. It's something going right. It's the body stepping up, saying, enough of this. This is not the way we mind and body partnership are meant to be. We were designed for better than this. And the first thing I want to challenge, and I do this all the time, challenge you on, is what are your own belief systems? In order to have a healthy mind, body, spirit, and live in this place of conscious optimism, the first thing is to be aware of, well, what do you believe? Because those belief systems about the mind and body partnership, they can bring you down before you even get into ID strategies. So if you believe, for example, that, well, we all get sick. I mean, we are human, so we're going to get sick, right? That's not the way we were designed to be. The body and mind, when they're at their best, they were designed to be perfectly healthy. And I'm not talking about where there's a physiological issue with a missing chromosome or something that happens that's more, biological. I'm talking about particularly where what we would call relatively normal in terms of no other physiological issues going on, but people who go, well, I always get sick, or watch out for this because this is what's happening in the world, and you feel like you're exposed to it. We are actually built with strong immunity to withstand so many viruses and illnesses. We're built with the best pharmacy in the world to help repair us to get back to a place of good health. But you've got to let the body and the mind do their thing. And that happens best when you are being your perfect self, which comes from being in stride. I still have people, when I challenge people and say, well, you're a strong gut feel person. Let's talk about the decisions that you've made when you are doing it from a place of gut. And people say things like, well, I usually get it right. It usually looks after me. You know, I'm normally make my best decision. No, all decisions made from that place of being in stride will work out. It doesn't mean they might go the way you expected, but if you look at them as a journey, they will serve you well. Whenever you do something in stride, it will work. And I think, as I've seen this for 30 years, it's not about most of the time it works. It's all of the time it works. It's whether or not you're conscious of that and willing to back yourself to sort of go, wow, it is right. Every time I do that, it works for me. I'm going to trust that and do that more often. And the same applies to your health and your fitness. So when you look at this diagram, now mostly when we do this, we do a quick check-in. We call this a peak performance indicator or a PPI check-in. And we ask you on a scale of 0 to 10, where are you? What would be the score for you in terms of you being at your best? Is the number that pops up inside you today when you ponder this a 10 or a 9 or some high score like that? Or are you in a place of, you know, okayness, which might be a 6 or 7? Or is there something going on where you feel really pulled way out of stride and you might be a 2 or a 3? What I want to do today is go a little deeper on this. And I want to ask you to think about, where are you with each of these different areas, not just a one total score, but if you want to get more into this space and more surgical about it, you can actually start to break down your life and say things like, well, where would I be on a scale of 0 to 10 when it comes to my exercise? How optimal is that? What about, and you might say, look, on exercise, I'm great. It's not, it's my work life that's pulling me out of track. Where are you with nutrition? That might be where you need to give more attention. It might be the rest and recovery. You might be burning it so much that it's actually getting more variety and rest and recovery and maybe having a better quality sleep where you need to pay more attention. This area of mindfulness might be where you could do some work. Like, what are the conversations occurring in your head? Are they expanding, positive, encouraging conversations that build your confidence and your perspective? Or are they diminishing conversations that represent levels of fear and anxiety and, you know, limitation for the way you see yourself, let alone see the world or your world? What about having purpose and meaning? Where would that be on a scale of 0 and 10? Are you just meandering through life, or do you feel that there's this fire in you of purpose and, you know, meaning to what you do? What about the environment that you're in, whether that be relationships, the work environment, your physical environment, or just the way, whatever space you tend to spend your time in? What is that for you? Is that where there's a low score perhaps, or maybe that's something that's a high score and you could lean more on that? What's the vibration? If you think about, what am I vibrating to the world? Am I vibrating gratitude? Am I vibrating love? Am I vibrating contribution? Or am I vibrating negativity and, you know, something that might be more limiting? Where is that for you? And then, of course, the one that we typically do about being in stride. So you can dig a little bit deeper. And the people that I know that have really extracted more value from this do this type of evaluation of themselves. Then you can do the same thing, you know, from the point of view of being in stride. You can break that down. Is it work? Is it my relationship? You might have a great job and everything's at work is great, so much so that you actually don't want to go home, because when you think about going home, you can feel your energy go down. It might be the opposite. It might be that your relationship and your home life is great and you're like, oh, I've got to go to work today. It's possible to have it all, you know, that you can have a great role in life, work-wise, you can have a great relationship with your kids. You might think, yeah, I'm a good dad or a good mom, but maybe you break it down and you go, you know what, I've got 3 children. My relationship number 1 is like awesome. I put that as a 10, but my number 3 child, I've got a real struggle there. It's just not the same for me. And maybe that's where I need to work. certain friends, the financials, your spiritual life. You might see other areas here. I didn't put fitness because it was sort of covered on the earlier slide. But my point being, break this down. If you really want to have a good look at your mental health, fitness, and well-being, break this down, and it will start to be more directive for you on where you maybe need to give your attention. Because you might, when you think about where you're at, you might have initially thought, I'm a pretty high score. I'm like a 9 out of 10. But when you have a look at this, you might think, you know what? One of my kids I need to do some work with, or I am a 9 out of 10 right now because I'm thinking more about my work role. But if I think about my relationship, that's not a 9 out of 10. That's where I need to do some work. I would just encourage you, and we'll send these slides out with the recording. I'd really encourage you to take some time to step back and go a little deeper on these and dig into what's your number. I might just stop there in case anyone's got any questions or comments before I continue on. Okay, so what we're going to do now is look at the connection between your ID and this concept of wellness and mental well-being. And when you think about, you know, if I go back to this, let me just go back to the slide. This slide here, if you think about you attacking this topic, you want to do it from a place of being at your best. So that's going to be different for each of us, depending on what our ID is. And what I would ask you to do is think, as we go through this, I'm going to show you a series of matrices that identify the key needs for each instinct, each direction of each instinct, actually. And as we go through that, you know, I want you to identify what is it that might be the hot point for you. There might be something here where you go, you know, I've got all the shoulds, I know what I should be doing, but I'm not doing it. And this is flagging what's missing. And I'll stop after each one in case you see something here that's not on the list that's relevant for you. So I'm going to start with verify and work through from verify to authenticate, to complete, to improvise. And you might see something where you go, well, you haven't got that on the chart and it's really relevant to you. And I'll stop so you can call it out and share it, because in doing that, it might help other people get something from this as well who might have a similar wiring to you. All right, let's go through and start with the first one, the drive to authenticate, to verify. So the first thing about this is health and fitness and you know, positive mindfulness won't even get your attention if it's not a priority. And for so many people, it doesn't become a priority until something goes wrong. And that might be a doctor telling you, you know, we've got to stop and get you into surgery. You've got a triple bypass that's going to happen this afternoon, right? Now, all of a sudden, kaboom, it's a priority. It might be the best friend of yours at a similar age has a heart attack, and that makes now it a priority for you. Whatever it is, you've got to find a way to make this topic a priority. Often it's a case of research or experiences like that where you compare yourself to it and go, whoa, that could have been me. I need to make that more important in my life. But unless it's a top priority, the other things that your mind says are more important are going to get all your attention. The people who do this regularly and seem to do it without effort, they've found a way to just acknowledge or reconcile that it's a priority, so much so that I don't even want to think about it again. Some people say that's why I do it first in my day, because I do have lots of other priorities. But if I do it first, I get to do it before I get distracted with everything else. But, you know, when they start off their day, they know if I don't do it, or I can get by for maybe one day, but if I don't do it for 2 days, I'm going to get my headaches back, or there's some consequence. And that's like they've got a hook to, you know, get into that keeps it a top priority for them. Now, the other point about this is, you know, that makes it a priority is having purpose. The purpose could be as simple as I want to be around for my grandchildren. Or, you know, I've got a wedding coming up and I want to look my best for that wedding. Or I've got, you know, I spoke to someone the other day and they said, you know, I went on a trip and I found myself exhausted. We're doing like going around looking through all of Europe and I couldn't do it. I just ran out of steam. You know, I was exhausted. So my purpose is I want to keep traveling, but I'll get fit for travel. right? So whatever it might be fixing an injured knee so that you can do that travel, whatever it might be, there's got to be purpose to it. And there's these days, a range of apps and technologies and different programs that give you the measures on a regular basis to keep you on track and accountable, because the measures or the metrics that allow you to keep comparing continuous improvement and seeing where you might need to give a different level of attention, that's what's needed. It's quite technical and scientific for a verifier, and that's what they thrive on, that concept of having a lot of thinking and analysis and weighing it up and problems to solve. That works. So if it's not mentally stimulating, you're not going to do it. You can make sure that happens. I put accountability here because a lot of people think accountability is relevant more to the avoid complete drives, but verifiers thrive when they're being checked up on. It doesn't mean they like it. They'll moan and whine about it, but they actually find that it's a force for good, because when they're being checked up on, when they're being verified, it keeps them on their toes. So putting that mechanism in place, it might be a personal trainer. It might be telling someone that you've got a commitment, you're going to do an event, like run a particular race in 6 months' time and you're getting ready for that. Whatever you need to do to get accountable and have that mechanism, that's really crucial to a verifier. Now, I'm going to stop there in case anyone who has that drive sees something that they've used that really has worked for them that they'd like to share with the group. Remember, you might be on mute if you want to share something. All right, I'm going to move on to the avoid drive. So this is avoid verify, and this is what we put here. The first thing is that sense of acceptance and encouragement. If you're around people that are putting you down, it's going to be really hard for you to succeed. And sadly, for so many people, even the people closest to them almost scoff at their intention to lose weight, get fit, live more positively, do work around personal development. You need to get that changed. And whether or not that's changing relationships or changing roles, or whether it's just having a conversation to seek out the encouragement, joining a gym or having friends around you that provide that acceptance and encouragement to you, that is a really important ingredient. I can't stress enough, not only how important it is, but how much it's been the undoing of people trying to live a more positive and healthy and optimized life. That support network is crucial. The second part is, opposite to the verified drive, you don't want to have to think about things. If you've got to think and weigh it up and remember, etc., it's just all too complicated. What you want is something that's more straightforward. So this is why, and again, today with the different technologies, there's all sorts of apps and programs that you can load up on so that things happen more automatically. You can order food on a routine basis that just happens, make sure that you don't have to think about it. You can set up fitness programs and set alarms to remind you of things so you don't have to think. But you can use technology to advantage, so the more automated you make life, the easier it becomes. And finally, collaborate. Doing things with others where you're collaborating and you're sharing ideas, you're giving the encouragement and the support as much as you're getting it from others, sharing ideas on what you're doing. That stimulation really energizes avoid verifiers. Could be as simple as going for a walk with someone else. It not only keeps you accountable, but the sharing of ideas and the thought of doing it with others, that's really motivating, particularly if you find that those same people give you lots of support and lots of insight. The other thing is you need people that you can give that to as well. And so this is where a group or collaboration really works for you. All right, anything else from our avoid verify friends that you would add to this list?
Paul, this is Bree. I'm an avoid verify, and I would just echo and emphasize the social component of my working out. I recognized I would cancel any other workout if I could do it with another person for the benefits that you just mentioned.
That's great input. Thanks, Bree. So just so I'm clear, and for others too, if you had something to do on your own, or there was an opportunity to do it with others, you would always default to doing it with others.
Correct.
Yeah. Cool.
Mhm.
Cool. Isn't that interesting?
I would add to the unconditional encouragement, listening. Big deal. Listening and being totally present with, that's what I need as an avoid verifier. I just had that experience earlier today. So that's it's not just the encouragement, it's the being present and listening and helping me to process what has happened.
That's so valuable, Judy. Thank you for sharing that. It's really that I love this concept of being present, because this is the drive that's all or nothing. And if you've got someone there with you and they're not all there, they might as well not be there at all, you know. That's a really great call out. Thank you. And I think it's good for those of us who aren't wired that way to realize how important the listening and the empathy that comes from being so present in that moment is for people like you. Very cool. I actually find a lot of personal trainers, funnily enough, who are avoid verifiers. And I've often wondered, why are they so good at it? You know, I've always thought it's maybe their sense of encouragement and acceptance of wherever you're at. There's no judgment. Mm-hmm. But maybe there's also this added dimension that when they're with you, you really feel that they're with you, you know, 100%. So a great call out. Thank you.
Paul, I have one more comment, if you don't mind.
Sure.
My early career, I was a personal trainer. I wish I would have had ID back then. But to your point, I'm really excited to look at the different clients I supported, because I saw a lot of what you brought up between the two.
Thanks, Bree. So if something here, as we're calling these out, you know, if you've got this drive, I mean, this is what you need to hone in on. If it's missing and you feel like you're struggling, particularly if it's your strongest drive, this is where you go to then change that and improve things. All right, let's move on to the authenticate drive. So the first thing here, before you get started with any ID strategy per se, is having a clear picture of success is fundamental. But even more important is the picture you have of yourself and what's possible for yourself. We call that your identity. So if you've got an identity that says, I can't be that person, you know, from where I was, you know, based on the way I was raised or where I was born, it's who I am to be poor. It's who I am to be overweight. It's who I am to be middle of the road or average. It's, you know, I mean, it's just not me to be a superstar success performer. That's not the way I was raised. It's even against my belief systems to be a standout success. Whatever that identity and belief system you have of yourself, that shapes that inner voice and that inner picture is going to screw up anything you try and then do as a strategy. And I've found when I've worked with authenticators, no matter, and this was early on when I didn't realize the power of identity, it just overrides all other strategies. And so whatever that picture is you have of yourself, if there are any relevant limiting beliefs, that, and I mean things like, well, I'll always feel disconnected because, you know, I'm the third child and everyone who is the third child feels this, or I was adopted, or because my parents split up when I was young, I'll never be able to have a happy marriage because that's just not where I came from. Whatever that identity is, that's what I'm talking to here in terms of the mindfulness. It's not just about fitness and health, but whatever that, you know, optimized life is that you truly would love to have, that you might think be beyond you. It might be because of the identity you hold deep in your mind and heart. And I'm not suggesting that that's a quick fix, but at least if you can articulate it, it's something that you can begin to work on. And depending on the rest of your ID, you might work on it on your own, or you might work on it with others, but at least your ID would guide you as to how you best work on that. but I really want to emphasize, firstly, the significance of identity. And then as you start to move forward, the clearer the picture you have of your success, the more chance you have of getting there. The more foggy that picture, well, if it's foggy, you're just not going to get there. So clarity of picture, the vision. Some people, for example, put a photo on their fridge of, and it may not be of themselves, it might be of someone else or of a situation that represents what it is they're trying to create for themselves. But that clarity of picture is almost like the primary motivation for this drive. And then if you take that thought and that feeling, that visualization from inside you and verbalize that, it's more than just a statement, it's a promise to an authenticator. When they make that comment of, this is what I'm going to do, the minute it becomes real, every cell in your body is going to work away to make that become a reality. And the power of converting it from a thought to spoken word for the Authenticate Drive is profound. It is the key ingredient to then activate you making it happen. Obviously, it's got to be something that's relevant in your life, that really matters to you. And then you start to take action. But you're wired to be active, to be a doer, not just to be thinking about it, but doing something about it. And it almost doesn't matter what you start doing, so long as you start doing, you will get there. And I thought one of the comments that someone else made with this drive was, they said, I've thought of my body as a machine, and it's a machine I want to understand. It's a machine I want to fine tune. It's a machine I want to get the optimum output from. And that's how they think of, their body for fitness, health, and mindfulness. All right, I'm going to stop there in case any of you with some strong authenticators on the call would like to either comment or add something to this list.
Hi, Paul. I'm actually not high in Authenticate, but a couple of things that are resonating is I've just started reading Atomic Habits by James Clear. And that identity piece, he just says is key to changing any habit, that you've got to see yourself. You can't change to become someone that you can't imagine of yourself. So your identity is huge. And also when we were looking at Verify, that automated, once again, stacking habits and just automating everything. So it's really interesting how a lot of fitness stuff is about habits. It is about regularity and how the ID and these concepts fit together.
Yes. Yes, and some of these words, to your point, Lynn, you might look at them and think, well, I'm the opposite drive, like I'm a verifier, and I like things to be automated so I don't have to think about it. And I won't go into them now, but there would be a way of still explaining that from the Verify point of view, but it's just that it really resonates with the directions that I've got here. The same with identity. I would say limiting beliefs are relevant to everyone. But they're especially the case if you're an authenticator and it's all about the picture. That internal picture is going to really screw you up. There are some other components for avoid authenticators that will be even more profound than identity.
Paul, when I was a personal trainer, I had a back injury in my early 20s. And at that point, my identity it was my job, it was what I did with social friends. I really went inward to say, who am I if this can't be rectified? So I just want to emphasize your point being an 80 and Authenticate. I learned that early on of how do I look at my identity outside of things when the circumstances change.
Beautiful. Thank you, Bree. Thanks for sharing that. Okay, if you are an avoid authenticate person, it's more about the feelings that you want. How you feel, you've got to connect to the feeling. So it might be how you're feeling right now. You might say, I feel crap. I do not want to feel like this. But what will really resonate for you is the feelings. And what do you want to feel? Well, I want to feel vibrant. I want to feel like I can do anything. I want to feel like, when someone asks me to do something, I can get up and respond to that. What is the feeling or feelings that you want to have vibrating through your system? There might be negative feelings at the moment you want to get rid of. There might be positive feelings that you want to create, or there might be feelings that you have now you want to just sustain. But identifying and tuning into the feelings that you have is a key driver for the avoid, authenticate, drive. Tying it back to key philosophies. I mean, this is the idea that runs deep, you know. So if you've got your deep-seated principles, philosophies, belief systems, and that's what you not just articulate, but keep front of mind. You know, you just because you're that drive doesn't mean you don't forget them from time to time. But if you have them written out or somehow, you know, front of mind for you, that you can stay focused on what are your key belief systems that you want to be. Like, you know, it could be that I want to radiate vitality to the world. You know, well, are you ready? You might forget that tomorrow morning when something goes wrong or there's a conversation that throws you off. But if you've got a way of keeping that front of mind, and it doesn't have to be 15 things, it might come down to one statement that you have of who you are. That is like your key philosophy that you want to strive for. But that's something, the more you articulate it and keep that front of mind, the more it keeps you going. And then, of course, if you can be achieving several things at the same time. So, for example, if you're going out walking with a friend and you're not just getting fit, but you're also, you know, building that relationship or addressing an issue with that person or discussing, you know, product development while you're doing that, there's, you know, multiple benefits or multiple things you're accomplishing at the same time. That type of leverage is a really great motivator for that drive. Leveraging perception. So this is the drive that you know is driven by what other people think or what people think and feel about them. So if you want people to think certain things, or if you know that they already do, like everyone thinks that I'm the person that will never be able to do X, and I want to change that perception, or everyone sees me as this and I need to live up to that. Whatever the perception is that you want to shift away from or move more towards, identifying that and having that front of mind is a driver for that. You know, it doesn't always need to be about a perception from someone else. It might also be the perception you want to have about yourself. When you look in the mirror, who do you see and what's the voice coming back at you? What is that perception that you want to change? But being focused on perceptions is huge. Connectivity with people particularly is really big for that drive. So whenever you can be doing things where you feel you've got deeper, meaningful connections with people, that's a driver. So, you know, for example, exercising with other people, it's not about the social at the superficial level. It might be because you're able to touch those people or they're connecting with you in a way that is really more deep, you know, deep and meaningful to you. But building out those connections and focusing on that as a source of your motivation and energy is really crucial to that drive. All right, anything here that anyone would like to add? And of course, I didn't say this before, but if you're a 5 in these drives, you probably won't, you might understand these things intellectually, but they won't really stir anything inside you in terms of resonating, because it's not where your drive is. It'll be in one of the other 3 where you have a drive that goes strongly up or strongly down.
I'm a 5, Paul, and I do resonate.
Oh, you do? Good.
Mhm.
In what way, Judy?
I resonate with just about every one of these points that you put here. Really.
Okay, so you have it all. Like, I don't mean that probably the way that came out. I mean you relate to it all in terms of, you know,
Right.
These things are true for you, and as we often say about that drive, you can go either way with it, which is probably why you relate to them both. Do you feel like they drive you?
No, they not drive me, and I'm very conscious of them. I'm conscious of my identity and who I am today. And I do have a clear picture of success, and building relationships and focusing on connections. They're all very important to me. So they don't drive me. I'm just conscious of them.
Okay, that's a good distinction, Judy. What will be interesting is, as we now move to the complete drive, which is your strongest drive, what's the difference between how you connected to what's in the Authenticate drive, for example, and what comes up for you when we show the complete drive, and see if that has a different connection with you, you know, for what you might consider drives you. Let's see. I mean, you're our ultimate test because you're a 70 incomplete. So let's see what comes up for you. So the first is, it's all about the plan. You know, I'd say there's two things really, the plan and the consequences. So just like for a verifier, if it's not a priority, they're not going to do it. For a completer, there's got to be consequences, and that you're aware of, that you're either trying to achieve or avoid. And if you've got a plan to then make that happen, a pathway you can follow, that is vital. The real fulfillment for a completer comes from checking things off and feeling like you're making progress towards an end outcome that you planned, you know, that's very intentional. There's a plan to get there, and you can see yourself making progress. The important thing is, often when people are starting off on this journey as a completer, it might be a big goal you have. It might be about, you know, coming from a place of injury to try and recover. Imagine someone who's had an accident and they're, you know, not able to walk, and they've got to start that journey all over again, or learning to talk all over again. It's a big goal to get there. It might take a long time. And depending on how you set up that plan, you can either, just because it's a plan doesn't mean it's going to work. I see so many completers, because they want to get there or they feel pressure to get there quickly, it can almost be overwhelming trying to start too big. And the key ingredient that makes it successful, and is actually beautiful to watch this for a completer, is momentum. When you start small, so you might say, well, if I've got to saving money is a great example, because if you've got to save $100,000 to buy a house, you think, oh, how am I going to get there? I can only afford like $200 a week. $200 a week is never going to get me to that sort of money. If that's what's happening, you're right, you won't get there because it feels too big a goal, and the incremental steps are too big. But if you just start small, today it might be $200 a week, and as you build momentum, you start to adjust maybe the way you're spending in other areas, or things start to happen, and then you can save $300. And when you see that amount being, you know, growing in your account, and you share it with someone, I've seen this where kids starting to save up for something they really want, like buying their first car. Their grandparents, for example, see them making really good progress, making momentum, and they say, you know what, Johnny, if you put $5,000 in, I'll loan you $5,000. And then it all of a sudden leapfrogs and goes to another level. As that momentum happens, what you're vibrating changes, and other people around you maybe start to build towards that as well. So you can't guarantee that. You can't, you can guarantee momentum will work for you, but you can't guarantee that the grandparents are going to come along and lend you money. But it's just interesting to me to watch what happens as you start building momentum. It's like the world starts to want to help you succeed, and that momentum becomes even more powerful. So be careful when you make your plan to not sort of break it down linearly and say, well, if I want to get there over 2 years, over means I've got to divide it by 24 and have a monthly goal. No, the first month might be really small. The last month might be really big, and it will be like an exponential increase as you move along. So don't be disheartened by starting small. The key is to get started and trust the momentum, and stay on track with that plan, and expect to regroup. Like every plan, life happens. Things will change that will make you feel like your plan was wrong or you've gone way off track. It isn't off track. It's just that your planning was a little out on what life had planned for you already. And if you just see it as, oh, it was me that was out, and I just need to regroup, recalibrate, get back on track with what life had in store for me, which is always for your growth and wellness, then instead of feeling defeated and like, yet again, you know, this plan's not going to work, and then having to go all the way back to zero like snakes and ladders, you can just recalibrate and keep going forward. So I'll stop there in case anyone with this drive would want to add something else.
Remember the importance of harmony in this.
Can you elaborate on that for us, Judy?
Yes, and so as I look at the fact that I'm a 5 in Authenticate, you know, when I'm clear about my identity and clear about where I'm going in my life and building relationships, that all helps me to feel in harmony.
There you go. There you go. And is harmony the stronger driver for you then, in that case?
Is harmony, is it,
Yep.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Is harmony the stronger driver for you then, in that case?
Well, harmony and completion, they're both pretty equal.
Okay. Yeah, so the concept of identity and connecting with others, they're in service of trying to achieve harmony and completion. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, Paul, Steve, 2 comments. First one is in picking up on Judy's harmony. When you're a high completer like I am, there is a time you need to be a disruptor in business. So for a completer who wants harmony, sometimes you've got to operate in disharmony to get stuff done. That's just so therefore the challenge of how do you keep yourself in a healthy position whilst you interact and get things moving. And the other thing I find is the biggest challenge in business, where you have different business units have different plans and different objectives, and sometimes they clash. So as a completer, the biggest learning is how do you interact your plans with others where they fit together so that you don't get sidetracked or sideswiped too often. That's the biggest challenge I find with that.
They're great points. They're great points, Steve, because you're exactly right. So many completers who want harmony end up almost like selflessly compromising their own self and their needs in order to not upset other people, you know, and meet those other people's expectations. So I would suggest to you the key there is to focus on long-term harmony, not short-term harmony. So and I'm not saying don't serve other people, but instead of having it feel like, oh, I'm doing this for others and I'm not getting my plan done and so on, you can still do both. You just say, well, I am doing this today for that person to achieve the short-term harmony, but I need to get back on track, or I keep my perspective on what the bigger picture here of, you know, where this is going long-term. When the bigger picture, longer-term harmony is not happening, that's when this is going to need to really get some attention.
Yeah, that's a fair comment. Cool.
And the other point you make about integration is exactly right. I mean, your plan that works for you, it's got to be one that fits into your world and works for others, but in order to have that harmony that Judy was talking about before, because that is a, you know, super driver of this complete drive.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm making a really important note on that, because that I'll add that to the list. That's when I said plan, it should be get an integrated plan, you know, a plan that works for you and works for the others around you, or else it's not going to work. And I think sometimes when there's some level of urgency or consequence, and so a completer makes a plan that isn't as holistic as it needs to be, then you're likely to come on, well, not likely, you will come unstuck with that plan, because that bigger picture sense of harmony will ultimately change it on you.
Yeah, it'll bring you undone very quickly either way.
All right. I also said here about making something routine. You know, how you get started in your day and your week is really crucial. And the more you feel ahead of the curve, so it's one thing to use momentum, but when you can actually feel ahead of the game, that's like a supercharger on momentum, or having a turbocharger on momentum. So getting organized ahead, starting early, getting some level of advantage or head start really works for a completer.
Hi, Paul. I'd like to just add to that point on the completer part, and it kind of goes in line with everything you've mentioned there. And recently, I decided that I wanted to wake up an hour and a half earlier than Joshua, just to get some time for myself. And I saw that, and I'm like, oh, an hour and a half, that's a lot of time. Like, it's so difficult to get that. And then I just went a little bit at a time, and I built this routine over a few weeks, where first I was just waking up, changing from my pajamas, and then he was up, you know. And now I got to a stage where I wake up, I get myself ready, I have my coffee, I do some stretches, yoga, meditation, I do a lot of things, and then he's up. And I just feel like, you know, I built momentum over time, now I have a great routine. And the last point you were saying, I feel ahead of the curve, because when he wakes up, you know, there will be things during my day where I can't control the harmony, but that initial part of my day I can control. It depends on me. I start in harmony, I start in control of my day, and that just makes such a big difference for my mental health and physical health and everything. And it's just, yeah, it's been amazing. So I think it goes in line with all those points there.
There's an important point here, Amanda, in what you're saying, which is it's not just that it makes a bit of a difference. You know, that like when you said, if I get started that way, it makes a real difference. I would really encourage you and other completers to think about how much of a difference it makes, because it's scary how much of a difference it makes, right? And it's good for us who aren't completers to understand this, for you guys to be able to help support that. My experience is that people tell me when they start their day on the right foot and can get some level of, you know, momentum on how they get started that's according to their plan, their day is typically, and think about this before I say it, Amanda, as to what you would think, how would you quantify this for yourself? But I would say that it's 4 times is the number that gets given to me. Their day is more successful or more productive by a factor of 4. Now, whether it's 2 or whether it's 10, the average answer I get is 4. And either way, any of those answers all mean that it's significant. We're not talking about 5, 10, 15%. We're talking about orders of magnitude. And I think it's really powerful to realize that about yourself, because it makes you even more emphatic about being true to that as to how you start your day. All right, guys, I'm aware of the time. So let's get on with the rest of we've got 3 more sections here to cover. Variety for the avoid complete drives. Variety is everything. I mean, you want to stay consistent. It's not start, stop. It's keep going, but have different things you can do that really mix it up and keep the variety in your life, whether that's about how you keep fit, whether it's the food that you eat and the nutrition you call on, whether it's where you go shopping to get some of that food. So you've always got variety there. Whatever it is, get the variety, but in a form of consistency. One of the important things is to remove the option to not do it. You know, you like options of what you might have for dinner or how you might keep fit, but remove the option of not doing it. That could be as simple as just making a decision. Like, I'm just not going to do that, and that's it, I'm done. There are people that decide to give up smoking, stop drinking, start exercising, have a, like mine was, I'm just going to have a personal trainer for the rest of my life, done. You know, and no matter what's happened, I'll compromise something else in order to maintain that accountability and consistency with my fitness. So whatever it is for you, remove the options that get in the way of not doing it. Do it first before you get, you know, nothing is more guaranteed than that you're going to get distracted. If you're an avoid complete, of course you get distracted. You have the best of intentions of doing something in the afternoon. If you do have to do it later, lock it in somehow, like get accountable with someone else, set up a meeting where you're going to go for a walk with someone or a workout with somebody, or take the time to do, you know, your time out, meditation, whatever it might be, somehow set it up so you can't get out of it. But otherwise, do it first. It's one of your big rocks for the day, and give it the attention that it deserves. The other is having accountability. Now, whether that's having somebody else or some mechanism that keeps you accountable, it might be what your, you know, a journal that you're recording on your, you know, from an app of some form, whatever it might be that you need for accountability. Accountability is a huge driver for the avoid complete person. Any input here from our avoid complete friends? All right, let's move on with the complete drive. Oh, sorry, improvised drive. You know, it's all about the energy, the excitement, the buzz. And if you've got something that's like, wow, this is going to be amazing, whether it's the goal itself, whether it's the environment, there needs to be positive energy, positive people, you know, a sense of fun. And not only that environment of positivity, but how you go about it has got to be fun. How you go about it has got to be positive. If the environment's positive, but the process is not fun, that will bring it undone. And having little ways to celebrate. Celebration could be as simple as giving yourself a treat that you're going to have, you're going to have a workout, and then you'll go and have a nice breakfast somewhere and just enjoy the freshness of the morning and some me time. That can be a celebration. Doesn't mean you've got to do anything big with balloons and, others. It's just an injection of positive energy for you. But that sense of fun, even though it looks like somewhat for me, even as an improviser, it looks like a superficial word, it's a phenomenal driver, and a big reason why some people who have this drive don't continue on a path of, being fit, healthy, and of positive mind, because there wasn't that fun ingredient in whatever the process was they've designed. The sense of wow, and not wow so that everyone else is going wow, but the sense of wow for you. You're going, wow, I did that. Wow, that would be amazing. But that concept of wow, build that into the way you're figuring out how to live with more fitness, more health, and more mindfulness. What would that need to be for you? Simple word, but it will drive an interesting answer for you. What does wow need to be for you? All right, anything from our improvisers? All right, finally, the avoid improvise drive.
Oh, sorry, Paul.
Yes.
I was just trying to find the button. The first wow to me was understanding psychoneuroimmunology and the whole relationship between mind, body, and wellness. And that was the book, Why Zebras Don't Get Stressed, a very simple understanding of what that means.
Okay.
The next one was actually working with Health 2000, and did a lot of work with Dr. Robert Cornish, and him talking about Guide to Men's Health, or it's men's and women's health, and the relationship between nutraceutical and pharmaceutical, because they are competing sciences. So in terms of that, that's the book I've best got on it, about nutraceuticals, the availability of them, and the science behind them. And then the last one, when you're talking about the whole relationship between mental health and physical health, that's the book that I use. I distribute them now to people, which is Your Health is Your Greatest Wealth.
Great. Well, if anyone would like more on that, maybe you can just send them the link.
Yeah, I'll send that email to you, Paul. Yeah, I know that was a brain dump. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. So just in the interest of time, guys, one of the biggest challenges for the avoid improvised drive, if you're lacking motivation, is to focus on the risks of not doing it. Play them out. Play them out for the long term, not just, there may not be a big risk today. Like an example is smoking. You have one cigarette, which it won't be probably that big a risk, but over the course of time, and this is the idea that looks at the sustainable value, the sustainable impact over time. So play it out and look at the long-term impacts. What are the long-term goals that you want to focus on? Because that will make the risks of not doing those things more motivating for you today. This is the idea that likes to not have all the hype of a lot of other people involved, the hype of, big promises and noise. You don't want all that. You want to be more the silent solo person. So design your plan and your pathway accordingly. Meditation which is silent, at least silent externally, silent for you and on your own, is a wonderful thing for someone like you to do for your fitness, your health, and your mindfulness. And I'm not saying that that wouldn't be good for every other drive. It just really resonates with the avoid improvise drive, because it's something you do on your own, and it's got that real sense of silence and solo about it. And then commit. This is the drive that if you make the commitment, you will deliver. So what does commitment need to be for you? Like, is that telling someone? Is it writing it down? Is it, making a certain amount of progress first, like in a trial before you can commit? What do you need to do so that you can really commit? And what would commitment really look like for you? Because once your mind, it's a bit like the authenticator. Once the authenticator speaks it, it's done. Once the avoid, improvise, commits, it's done. You will deliver. And you'll deliver to the point where you don't have to say anything about it. The results will speak for themselves. So put that plan together or that, journey together for you, and you'll be assured of your success. When we come back together in a couple of weeks' time, we'll dig into this holistically, and please bring to that meeting, if there are examples or situations that you want some help with on how to sharpen, your own life in terms of your fitness, your general health or mindfulness. We'll work through some use cases. There'll be people on the call to help you sharpen these strategies and look at the things that might get in the way so you can have more chance of greater success. Thanks for being with us today, everybody. Have a great rest of the day, and hopefully we'll see you in a couple of weeks' time to dig into this at a more specific ID level. Thanks, everyone.